welcome back to the Coach's Hour. You're joined here with myself, him, and my co-host, Joade Graham. A bit of a quick admin before we start. So this podcast is free. There's no ads, no spam, just pure value for now. So if you want to pay us back, you can give us something for free. Leave us a review, like the episode, and share it with a friend who you think is a fucking shit coach. And then you can tag us so we can also laugh at them. That's the exchange rate. So with that out of the way, today's episode, we're going to be talking about training to failure and beyond. Everybody loves to think that they train to failure. And you always see trainers make posts about effort and failure. But what really is it? And how do you implement it? So, do you think you train to failure?
Cool. So before we go in then, because like what is train to failure? So I've got 3 types of failure.
Okay, maybe we're the same.
Okay, cool. So I would say muscular,
Okay.
concentric, and technical.
Similar, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I call it mechanical failure,
Yeah,
which is kind of like your failure to do another rep with the same form.
that's
and the range of
technical for
motion.
me. Yeah,
Okay.
cool.
We've got momentary muscular failure. So this is where, I guess, the concentric, similar kind of thing, where you can't produce force at that moment to complete the concentric.
Yeah,
And then I have technical failure, where you can't complete the rep, or you can kind of complete the rep as long as you do a little bit of cheating kind of thing.
okay, cool. I've got that as like technical as well then. Cool.
Okay.
So it's similar-ish or similar enough. So in this context, if needed, we'll give like, this applies to one of the 3. If not, then we'll just assume it's muscular failure, i.e. you cannot perform another rep. Like that is it, you're done.
I guess that muscular is kind of very similar to mechanical.
Yeah,
right?
it's basically
in some ways.
you can't
It's
do
really
another
just
rep.
2, right?
Yeah.
Mechanical and kind of like technical.
Yeah, cool.
I guess.
Perfect. So your original question was, have I trained to failure?
Yeah, do you think you train to failure?
No.
Okay.
Based on these definitions, no. I've had it where I can control an eccentric, so I can't do a concentric, but I can control it. So I'm doing a bicep curl. I can control the eccentric. I've been to like that type of failure. I've been to technical failure, which is where like my form goes all over the place, but true failure, as in I cannot do another rep. I don't think
Like
I've
due
been.
to just purely the muscle?
Just pure the muscle. I haven't been there because, no, I haven't been. I've been close, but I've never been to like, I'm done. And I think, I'm going to say you have. I see you train like a madman.
I think I would say the closest that I've been might even be, originally I would have said with Milos. Like I think he pushed us pretty hard, but even then I was like, okay, maybe. But when we were at Tom's, Tom Purvis in Oklahoma, he had some mad Frankenstein device that obviously he's created, right? And that was to take you to failure. Like, and it's very stable, secure. It was basically like, kind of like a leg press, but what I could describe as like, on like a jack. So it was like, he had like a chest press. Imagine like you're sat back on the leg press and you got like some handle, right? So he has this button that is like, goes, and it just comes towards you. And you have to resist it from crushing you. Yeah. And then it reverses the other way around. So you hold onto the handle, you're gripping onto it, and it's pulling you away. And he just keeps going and going to test, right?
And that takes you to failure.
And yeah, that's probably where I felt like, I hit failure.
See, and that's very interesting because the key thing that you said there was you was in a stable environment. Yeah. And I don't believe, or I think it's very difficult, I won't say I don't believe, it's very difficult from a nervous system standpoint to get to failure if you aren't stable, because your body won't allow you to, your body will stop you before you get there because it's trying to protect you. Like when we go to failure, basically we're collapsing. And if you're not stable, your body's going to be like, hang on, this is very dangerous. And that's why I think the majority, and myself included, I haven't been there because I can always walk afterwards. I've always got one more rep just in case, or half a rep. And I think it's interesting that 2 very experienced trainers, like training themselves, me and you, have never been there. But a lot of people say,
I do it every week.
And it's like, train your clients to failure. And it's like, definitely not, like nowhere near.
I don't think it's possible, like for a lot of to take their client as well, because, we're talking about a stable environment. Someone that's new to it that's maybe even within their first year of training, they probably don't even know how to generate and create a stable environment, even if they are in a very, like, let's say, what would you say is kind of one of the most stable things that you could do?
So I would say like a hat squat's pretty stable.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like maybe even a pendulum's quite stable because you're fairly locked in. The path is fixed, so you can only go one way or the other, and you can't really move. Maybe even a leg press as well.
Yeah.
Again, fixed path.
So even with those, right, the client can find ways to reduce stability, right?
Oh, 100%.
Whether they're kind of shifting or movements. So it's very difficult to take clients to failure because there's other aspects which kind of give up before other things, whether it's mentally or whatever, that creates that movement shift, right? So yeah, I would argue that perhaps a lot of people aren't training to failure. And the more I understand failure, the more I think, familiar, you know, I'm a reps and reserve guy.
It is. And like, cause I heard the reason why we're speaking about this, or one of the reasons, is I heard I don't even know when it was now.
So on your stories, right?
Yeah, the start of the sentence was, when you train past failure. And I was like, that within itself does not make sense to me. And I was like, is it just me being dumb? I was like, am I being stupid here?
Yeah.
And then I was actually like, okay then, let me just see what failure is and then how someone can go past failure. And it's like, no, if you hit failure, you have failed.
Yeah.
You cannot go past failure. What you can do is replenish the muscles. You can get enough oxygen to be able to perform another set, or another rep. If you have failed, you can get enough oxygen to get you out the set. But that is not going past failure. That is a reset of whatever muscle you have been working. And it's like, and the way the person just used that phrase, and I've heard it so many times, like train past failure, train to failure.
Beyond it.
Yeah, it's like to failure and beyond. People just use that phrase as like, this is the standard, this is the gold standard of training. Like, should you train to failure? Should you train your clients to failure? And it's like, not many people have even been to failure to even experience what that is.
And I think the only way that you could do it, like could say you train beyond, is if you're saying, okay, I'm going beyond technical failure. And then in which case it's like, why the fuck are you doing that?
Yep.
Are you a powerlifter?
There you go. And it's like, I would completely agree, because most people have been to or beyond technical failing, and that's where a spotter would probably come in and help you. But what's the goal of the exercise? If it's to grow my chest, I don't want to go beyond technical failure, because then I'm using my delts, my triceps, my biceps, my back. I'm using everything else other than my chest to get this weight up. So for me, training beyond failure in whatever, unless you're doing it for a specific like a powerlifting contest. If you're doing it for hypertrophy, going beyond failure, I'm not going to say it's impossible, because I don't like absolutes.
It's not safe.
If it's not safe, and even if and when it is possible, it's beyond the point, because if the point is to grow muscle, I want to be working the muscle as much as possible. When I can't work the muscle anymore, that is the end of the set. It doesn't mean I have failed. It just means technically, I can't have the technique to do the chest if I'm working the chest.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting.
I think what was the other thing as well about so, you know, we like resistance profiles, we like profiles, and I guess even if, you know, a lot of times we say, oh, we're gonna you've got these machines which are supposed to help you to get closer towards, you know, reaching that point of muscular failure, right? So like Prime and Strive, and where the exercise is more congruent, where, you know, it loads a certain position. So it could be you load the lengthened position, so then it drops off. So then it becomes heavy where you're strong and lighter where you're weak, right? But even in those instances, it's still possible that although you are challenging or you're training the muscle in this congruent profile, you're still not necessarily reaching failure at that point, because you might still have a bit more. So let's say if you're doing a leg extension, right, it does drop off at the top, but then you still got loads of shit that you can do at the bottom, right?
Yeah. And I think, and this is where there'll be discussion, because like for muscle, like say we said leg extension and drop off. So like when you say drop off, just for anyone that may not understand, we speak about getting a little bit lighter where we are weaker. So it drops off, which means the weight is manageable throughout the quote unquote full range. Now, if what you're saying, if I've interpreted it right, it's like the muscle doesn't fatigue or fail at the same time through the same range. So there might be a range that fatigues first, there might be a range that fatigues next, and there might be a range that fatigues last. And it's very difficult in one exercise using one machine to get the muscle to fail at all 3 points simultaneously. And I think, I may be wrong, but I think that would mostly apply to muscles that cross two joints, because that's where we've got length and mid and short that need multiple joint positions to work that. Maybe if a muscle just crosses one joint, we might be able to get it fully fatigued because it crosses one joint. So going back to the leg extension example, we've got the vastus group that we know that just crosses the knee. Then we've got the rec fem that crosses the hip and the knee. So the leg extension dropping off at the top, that might be enough to get the whole of the vastus group really short. That might be fatigued to near enough failure. But the rec fem, it will get it failure short and maybe mid, but it it probably won't get it failed in the lengthened, because the hip is in a certain position where if we want to work it its lengthened, we would have to change the hip position. And if we do that, that means we move away from the shortened range. And if we can't do it on one machine, by the time we get out, do another setup, this shortened range is now probably okay again, because it's now full of oxygen, it's now recovered. So true failure in a muscle that crosses two joints, I believe might be very difficult to achieve in one exercise. I'm not sure if I'm right on that, or what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think so. Again, it's part of that stability standpoint, right? You're going to be a lot less stable as well in those kind of exercises. And I think you want, this is why the context is so key as well. Like you want to be really specific on what type of failure that you're reaching, and two is like, where are you, like what kind of failure are you trying to get failure in the quad? Because you could do a squat and you might reach failure in your back. So, you know what I mean? So it's like which, in that case, yeah, a bit fucking failure, right? But my quad's still got more. Do you know what I mean?
Don't get failure in your back. That's crazy.
So, yeah, I think, the specifics and the details of what you can't just say failure as a very general term, right? You've got to be very specific in terms of what kind of failure am I trying to reach.
So failure in the shortened range of the quad with the leg extension, that is fine. Failure in the lengthened range with maybe a split squat or some other exercise that you can get the hip in extension. And then failure of the mid range, which might be a combination of all those, maybe even the leg press or whatever it is. But I think context is key. And again, we keep seeming to come back to, I think, Instagram as well, like where a lot of context is thrown out of the window and people are using phrases that probably shouldn't be used, I don't think, in terms of like, let's train past failure. And it's like, well, hang on, let's just...
Past failure of what?
Exactly, let's just bring it back. Can we actually train past failure? Yeah. And if we can, we might be able to, if we can, past failure of what? And then like what happened, how safe is that? If you're a bodybuilder, it might be something that's okay. If you're a Gen Pop client, maybe don't want to go there. If you are going to go there, what parameters do you need to have? Should you have stable environment, i.e. machine? Should you have a stable environment, i.e. spotter? In my opinion, probably both. Should you have a stable environment, i.e. maybe a seatbelt to keep you locked in? There's a whole host of things that you need to consider when it comes to training near failure, or even in some cases to failure, other than just we're going to train hard until we technically break down and we can't do it anymore.
And then we keep going.
Because a lot of people think that like failure is like you get stuck at the bottom of a hack, take a second, then you carry on for 5 more reps. No, you take in a second, is you recovering to then go again.
Yeah, because that's the context that a lot of people go, and even myself, I've done videos where we say, oh, this is how your exercise should look like when you reach failure, right? And it's like, not all the time. You know, certain exercises may not necessarily look like that when you reach failure, right? So where you reach failure, where an exercise is loaded maybe in the lengthened position, is going to be looking a lot different than something maybe that is loaded in a short position, right? How your failure might look when it comes to doing a squat versus maybe a leg extension, again, it's going to look very different, right?
What do you think about the concept of like your first rep shouldn't look like your last? Like, you know, like if someone's doing like a bicep curl and people say your first rep looks like that, if your last rep looks like that, you're not training hard enough.
Yeah, I'm guilty of making those posts as well. But I think, yeah, again, I think on the whole, yes, there should still be some degree of slowdown, right? But it doesn't always look exactly like that.
So slow down, not break down kind of thing.
Yeah, because like if you think of doing a lying dumbbell extension, like a skull crusher type thing, right? You're going to get to a point where you actually just come up a little bit and you just stop, rather than being able to grind out that rep, right? Because of the resistance profile is going to be a little bit different. You're going to fail here, and you're done. Like you can't do any, you can't lift beyond that point unless someone spots you, and then maybe you can get the grindy reps in, right?
So like, are you an advocate for partial reps and even like say forced reps or spotted reps? Are you like do you agree with those? Because like, let's say back to the leg extension example, you might be done right at the top here, but you've still got some maybe here or anywhere between there and there. Like,
I think I like them, but again, it's going to depend on who this individual is going to be that we're going to work with, right? Because there's going to be a lot more breakdown in terms of the lengthened position than say the short position, right? You're going to get a lot more, I guess, lactate as well, build up of fatigue, maybe higher injury risk as well when dealing with loading or continuously doing reps at the bottom. So you may or may not want that as well, depending on who you're working with.
Definitely.
So I think that's really important before we make that concrete decision of whether or not, we're going to take every client to the depths.
Yeah. So like, have you ever used a Moxy?
I used that at Integra with Michael.
Okay, cool. So just before we go into that, I like to just, because we talk like we talk.
Yeah.
So a Moxy is a muscle oxygen monitor.
Oh, is that what it stands for?
I think so, yes. I think so, Moxy, muscle oxygen monitor. I believe so.
Makes sense.
If I'm wrong, then please don't come for me.
Yeah.
But like essentially then, so like what does a Moxy do, and does that, or how does that help measure possible failure?
Yeah. So from my experience of what it was like, it's basically, it kind of looks like, there's people who have diabetes and they got their stickers on them, right?
Yeah.
The white kind of like circular kind of thing. It's kind of like that.
Like a nicotine patch.
Yeah. Basically, you can put that anywhere on your body and it measures how much oxygen is in the muscle. So when you reach failure, technically that wherever you place it, it should be depleting of oxygen, right? So, and you should be able to see that from maybe where it's placed. So that's kind of my experience of it, is you see the waves of where the muscle kind of depletes. But yeah, I can't remember what your question was.
Yeah, so literally it's basically that. So like, what's your experience of the Moxy and how does it link into failure? So you've answered the question, because like failure normally occurs, or one of the reasons why failure occurs is because the muscle depletes of oxygen. We need oxygen for muscle contraction. And I think the reason why I bring up Moxys as well is because like when we talk about training to failure, I don't use Moxys, and you probably wouldn't use it for your general population clients, the majority of them. But it's like that is one of the better ways to look at whether a muscle has actually failed or not. And the interesting thing about that is because in certain cases, like let's say we're training the bicep and like we think we're training the bicep and we're going to do, I can do 12 reps of the bicep. And I put the Moxy on the bicep, and after 6 reps, I still feel fine. But the machine is telling me that there is no oxygen left in the biceps. So although I'm completing the movement, this is done.
It's done. Yeah.
There's going to be other elbow flexors that are contributing more to the movement than my biceps.
That's exactly what happened for me.
For you?
Yeah, so I kept pointing to my shoulders because we did it on the middle delt, right? And we're doing lateral raises. And after 6 reps, my middle delt was done. But I was still going.
Yeah.
And it was, you could just see the oxygen in the middle delt slowly actually replenish. And it was because other things like my rear delts
giving it a rest.
Yeah, were started to deplete. So it was a very interesting flip.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. And like, I know we're talking about failure, and it's a little bit off topic, but half in the same realm. But it's interesting, like, for somebody, if you're actually training to failure, and it goes back to the exercise, rep 1 should look like this, and the last rep shouldn't look like that. Well, if I've done 6 reps on a bicep curl, and my bicep has depleted the one I want to work, after 6 reps, my form is normally still, but I've gone to failure, and I haven't had to do all this stuff. And again, I understand that for most people, and for me included, like, I don't have access to one of those machines to be able to do that on every single exercise.
Crazy expensive as well.
And I probably wouldn't want to do it on every single exercise, but just understanding some of the application to tempo, what reps should actually look like, what failure actually is, how to actually get failure. Does failure in one muscle mean that I can't then complete the movement? Maybe not. And when someone just comes out and says train past failure, that's when I'm like, well, hang on. Let's pull it back a second. What does failure actually mean to be able to train past it? Because does that mean I've done 6 reps? Have I trained past failure? Because I'm still able to do this movement.
I think that then pairs quite well with the reps and reserve model, right? And why, in the research, it might be why, you can still build muscle when, you're, up to, I think it was 6 or 5 reps in reserve, right? So it could be that, where actually the muscle has reached failure, but it just looks and appears like you've got more reps in you because other muscles and maybe other joint managers, they take over, right? And actually, yeah, you've reached failure already for something.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it might well be. And I think everyone needs to just invest in a lab to try to figure this stuff out. We'll all pull together. Because
then if you think that, right, it would look like you're not training properly, if that makes sense. Like you're not putting in effort because I've already hit failure here.
And that's where
I've already depleted it of oxygen, right?
But then that's where, like, again, looking at enjoyment, because I wouldn't enjoy that, even though that might be the case. So I like feeling the burn. But from a standpoint, like, if I played a sport and my goal for that sport was to get a specific muscle grown or physically in the best condition as I could, but I want to manage my recovery, if I can do 6 reps and get that job done and leave everything else and let everything else recover, perfect.
You can do it again.
Yeah, perfect.
You might grow so quickly because I've just done 6 and then you feel fucking good. So you can do it again tomorrow. Yeah. And you can do it again the next day and then it kind of builds up through there.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
That might be the hidden gem of hyper
So
bodybuilding.
Do 6 reps for lateral raises.
Yeah, then, but that's it. Like, and this is where, like, maybe that might be the case, and we might be simplifying it too much. In terms of Moxys, I don't understand the nuance of it. It's like it might be a little bit more complex than this, but at some point I will be delving into it a little bit more detail because I'm very interested in it.
To get down to Michael's.
I plan to this year.
Get him on a pod. To talk about some Moxys.
Talk about Moxys. If you want Michael on the pod, Michael, if you want. I called out Michael and said, if you want Michael on the pod. People, if you want Michael on the pod, let us know. And Michael, if you are listening, please come and join us. We will have a chair somewhere around here for you.
Yeah, really.
Is there anything else you want to talk about on this episode?
Nothing really. I think yeah, we're training to beyond failure.
The main takeaway is do not train beyond failure. Whatever you do in life, do not train. Nah, it's not doing it. I'm half taking the piss.
You are beyond failure.
You're a failure. That's the lesson. Now, but in all seriousness, I think for all of us as coaches, and like for ourselves, we can maybe speak like that, but especially to clients and people that maybe don't have an understanding, just be careful of the terminology that we are using, because training past failure, like even it might sound harmless and it is, but just the perception of someone like might take, oh, I've trained past failure, that means I'm not going to recover. And then automatically tomorrow they may not push themselves as hard as they could, or they may feel like they've had a shit sleep because they've internally planted something that isn't correct in their head. So just being aware about what we say and the context it has for our clients. Like we can talk to each other about this stuff and we kind of know what it means, and training past failure, like we'll say it, but we know we're not going past failure. But the people that may not understand, just have a little bit of awareness.
Yep. And that's a wrap.
Cool.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, you can find me on social media at Gym With Him, and my co-host Jawade is at Jawade Graham Coach. And we'll catch you on the next Coach's Hour. Peace.